Question number 5, the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Corrections and asks, does she agree with the recent comment by the Minister of Finance in regard to private prisons, quote, "This is not about ideology. Private sector involvement will only happen where it makes sense," unquote.
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr Speaker, yes, I do. I also agree with the Honourable Phil Goff, who said he would support private construction and leasing of the new prisons if the government was concerned about capital expenditure considerations.
The Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
To the Minister, is she aware of data from her own department showing New Zealand's only privately run prison proved to be more expensive to run than its public sector equivalent?
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr Speaker, I'm actually aware of information from my own department that in 2004-2005, the last year that the Auckland Central Remand Prison was privately run, the cost was $57,280 per prisoner, while the equivalent in the public sector was $61,796 per prisoner. And this is information, Mr Speaker, I've given that member who's asked the question, so he really should read his documents before he comes down here.
The Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
It's a very helpful answer. Supplementary. Is she aware that prison officers who have worked at Auckland Central Remand Prison, both when it was privately run and publicly managed, have reported that under private management, incidences such as drug use and violence were much less likely to be identified or reported in order to protect the reputation of the contractor and ensure performance bonuses were received?
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr Speaker, I actually find that statement quite extraordinary, particularly when I've just received a letter from Mr Mel Smith, the former Ombudsman in charge of prisons, who has stated, quote, "I can say categorically that the ACRP was very well managed and certainly lost nothing in comparison with overseas examples in Australia, USA and Great Britain."
Sandra Gowdy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister of Corrections. Has she received any other reports on the operation of private prisons?
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Speaker, yes, I have. I've seen a press release from Clayton Cosgrove on private prisons and the 4 prisons built by Labour in which he claims, quote, "Labour's record is incredibly positive compared to National's," end quote. This is an astonishing claim given the cost blowout in prison building when that party was in government. The $643 a bed for Spring Hill Prison under that party.
The Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
To the Minister, how can this government claim that its plans to allow private management of prisons is, quote, "not about ideology," unquote, when this evidence clearly suggests that private prisons are neither more cost-effective nor safe for the public?
Honourable Judith Collins.
Well, Mr Speaker, the member should really listen to the answers before he reads out his pre-prepared questions. And in fact, I'm happy to advise the House that in New South Wales, private prisons cost 32% less per prisoner than public prisons, and in Victoria, it's 11% less. It clearly does work.
Ururoa Flavell.
Tēnā, Mr Speaker, kia ora tātou. To the Minister, does she agree with Māori Council spokesperson Maanu Paul that prisons should be privatised and Māori should run them because state control had failed Māori, and if not, why not?
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr Speaker, I've made it perfectly plain that I expect to have better representation amongst the management of prisons by Māori. And frankly, we could never do any worse than the 9 long years of a Labour government.